Okay, so something's going on here. And then there were the corporations. When I was a kid, I had a series of jobs. You made me think about my childhood. I had a series of jobs, lots of jobs. I first started stacking bricks. I used to, when they were knocking down buildings in the ghetto, you could go out there and stack bricks. I always had a hustle. You know, that was not you just go stack bricks, the guy pay you money. And then the older folks who would stack bricks would throw bricks at you because you were in their way. And so you were always in competition with adults for that particular job. But the point is, it was a job you can get access to. Then you got other jobs. Oh, I worked in the park, in a hot dog stand, the kind of job that you're talking about. To tell me that Disney now has a visa to bring in people because they didn't want people like me working in the hot dog stand in Disney World. It's an amazing statement. And then corporations in the city. I remember when I worked for Bell Telephone Company, Ma Bell, when it was a monopoly. And that was my first real job in an industrial, a large corporate setting. And I was just a kid who had the job who would bring the engineers what they needed. And so corporate America had these programs, and I understand quite well why, because after the riots in the 60s, people felt it was necessary to provide opportunity for inner city youth. So to me, this change that we're witnessing is fundamental. We're witnessing a shift in history. And in other words, I'm a historian. I change over time. Something is different, and we're closing the door on the idea that teenagers should work and they need to work. And this is a question, whether we were talking about immigration or not, we should be grappling with this question. And because we're talking about immigration, and because there's an assertion on the table that immigration impinges upon it, then you would say, if you believe it's good for teenagers to work, then things that keep them from working ought to be put on the table for a conversation. To me, it's about immigration then. It's also about the policies of corporations. Should they be hiring indigenous kids, regardless of color, regardless of class? Should they be hiring, and should individuals start rethinking who they hire? I think what I'm saying is, whether we were debating immigration or not, we are always, when we debate immigration, debating the very question of what kind of country we want and what we must do to sustain ourselves as a country. It is just not in any nation's interest to have so many of their youth go into their adult years hardly ever having had gainful employment. Now, Steve talks about these things in really nice, dry terms, and he's right about this, but do we really mean to say that effectively kids should start becoming members of the workforce when they're 21? Is that really what we're saying? Because part of what I've always thought our problem is that we've asked all our kids to delay all their pent-up desires for consumption, all their pent-up desires for relationships. They've had to delay this too long in the first place. And now we're asking them not only to delay it until that magic age, we're expecting them to magically understand how to perform in the workplace. The consequences for this to me is just simple. For middle-class kids, it means that we have kids who go to the workplace without an understanding of how to to follow what others tell them to do. I still think that's a problem for our kids. But for poor kids, what this means to me is that these kids are going to find work and opportunity outside the legitimate system. And whether we're talking about black kids, white kids, or Hispanic kids, our kids who are poor are going to increasingly be our problem because we have failed them once again by, in effect, eliminating them from the workforce because we do not think that they're the proper group to perform the labor. There's no place for them.